Well, after a full decade of drunkenly stumbling through about a dozen different creative directions and teams, the DC Extended Universe has come to an end. From wildly divisive beginnings, to desperate mid-flight course changes, to a brief glorious renaissance, to desperately fumbling for any stable ground, DC and Warner Bros. Discovery have finally put this series out of its misery. And so the much-hyped final DCEU entry is the 2023 blockbuster, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Except everybody at Warner Discovery thinks that Lost Kingdom is awful. So the real finale is The Flash! This movie was in development hell for decades, with a film starring Ezra Miller supposed to come out back in 2016. Two sets of directors were fired over the DCEU's identity crisis, and a third was fired because Miller didn't like them and wanted a darker script. Production almost got back on track in 2020 with IT director Andy Muschietti when a pandemic struck, and when filming finally got on track in 2021, Ezra Miller threw things into chaos again with a rampaging violent crime spree. They choked out a fan, threw a chair at a woman, allegedly groomed a Native American girl and got her on drugs before going on the run, holed up in a farm in Vermont with a mother, 3 young children including an infant, and shitloads of guns, ammo, and pot, showed up at a mother's house with a gun and fondled her child's hips, is alleged to have run a cult out of a B&B in Iceland, and got arrested in Hawaii for disorderly conduct, including assaulting people at a bar, robbing a store, breaking into a house to steal alcohol, and breaking into at least one couple's bedroom in the middle of the night to threaten them with murder and to steal a passport and wallet. The whole time fleeing authorities while posting batshit messages on social media that they were in another dimension. Boy, Zack Snyder knows how to cast a movie, doesn't he? His Batman relapsed into alcoholism, his Miro was outed as a domestic abuser, his Cyborg is still screaming that Warner Brothers is racist after all the people he dealt with have left, and his Flash is the real-life Joker! Somewhere along the line, Warner Bros. Decided to make the Flash movie an adaptation of the comic book storyline Flashpoint, the story where the Flash runs back in time to save his mom and to reboot any universe that DC wants to throw in the trash. Warner had rested the entire future of its biggest IP on the Flash rebooting the DC movies, so they steadfastly refused to cut Miller out of the film and recast, despite Miller losing their goddamn mind. And this gambit failed, as The Flash has bombed so hard at the box office that it's expected to lose somewhere between $200 to $300 million. But is Ezra Miller's controversy the only thing weighing the movie down, or is there more to this mess than meets the eye? Well, follow me and see what you make of The Flash. And before you try and go, you paid money to support the movie, so you're a filthy hypocrite. I bought a ticket to Transformers Rise of the Beasts, and I snuck into The Flash. Face! The movie opens with Barry Allen, the Flash, going to not Starbucks on his way to work and getting pissed off and short with his waiter because his regular waitress is out. Can you please just make my sandwich and make it fast? I'm late! Dude, chill. Now, what were all the ingredients again? Your order is weird. Don't make me throw another chair at you! I'm sorry, that was a cheap shot. I'll focus on just the movie itself from here on out. Anyway, Barry gets a phone call. Mr. Allen, this is Alfred. You're needed in Gotham. There's a hospital collapsing. God damn it! I haven't even had my breakfast yet! Why is it every time the league calls me it's to be the team janitor? Nobody takes me seriously, and I can't help but notice that 90% of the time, it's friggin' Batman that needs the help. I'm sorry, Mr. Allen, are you always this bitchy? There, go save some babies so the audience likes you. And this leads to, honestly, a well-done fun sequence of a bunch of babies falling out of the top floor of a hospital and the Flash runs around in midair grabbing them with whatever's on hand, including putting a baby in a microwave, which is where the movie's one and only meme that's flooded the internet comes from. It's a great sequence, except for one tiny thing. CG babies that look horrifying! There are multiple sequences in the film where the Flash is using his super speed, and he's surrounded by the most butt-fugly CG people this side of Spawn and the Lawnmower Man. Andy Muschietti tried to claim that the abysmal CG was on purpose to reflect how reality warps when the Flash uses his powers, except half the speed sequences have people that look normal. I know you can't just admit that the movie was crapped out unfinished, but don't insult the audience's intelligence. Anyway, this whole time Batman's been chasing a no-name villain on the Batcycle, somehow failing to capture this one normal dude as he causes shitloads of property damage that Batman does nothing to stop. It's bizarre how many shots this movie takes to shit all over Ben Affleck's Batman, saying the Flash has to constantly bail him out, having him struggle to stop one loser with no backup, and when the chase ends with the villains crashing over a bridge, Batman can't hold one scrawny average-sized man for his grappling hook breaking and his grip giving out. It falls to Wonder Woman to catch them both with the lasso of truth, whereupon the lasso makes Batfleck talk about how much he sucks. I only made this goofy, invincible persona to cope with the childhood trauma, and my whole crusade is futile. If I really wanted to end crime, I'd use my wealth to end poverty. I've never had sex! Yeah, I'm just gonna leave now. They want me to do this again for Shazam 2. What is wrong with your bat suit? It looks like the Arkham Origins bashed together suit, but that chest plate's the size of a house, and are those motion tracking lines from Unfinished Effects? Go home, Barry. Now that the fun part's over, we see all the ways that Barry's life sucks. Barry goes to work at a crime lab where he's the office butt monkey and nobody listens to him or takes him seriously. Probably because it sounds like he slacks on a lot of his important work. At the office, he runs into Iris West, a reporter who asks him some questions about his dad, and Barry immediately gets super pissed, has body language like he's about to punch her in the face, and storms off. Yeah, even past Miller's real-life problems, I just don't think they play any aspects of the Flash very well, except for the comedy. Every time they try to interact with normal people, it's stilted and awkward, like Miller would rather be literally anywhere else. Maybe there's a reason some of Miller's biggest roles have been school shooters. Barry then flashes back to his childhood. His mom was cooking one weekend and sent his dad out to get tomatoes, and while he was gone and Barry was upstairs, a burglar broke in and killed his mom, and his dad took the fall. His dad has an appeal coming up with new security footage from the store, but because he didn't look up at the camera, it's not going to get him out of prison. The case against Henry Allen feels weak as all hell, but whatever. Most superhero movies have a tenuous grasp of the law at best anyway. The sheer despair and frustration drives Barry to speed away, super pissed off. I think, since Miller's expression is dull surprise, and he rage runs so fast that he accidentally runs back to the hospital collapsed from the opening, realizing that he can time travel. Which he should have already known. Maybe. The Flash cannot decide which cut of Justice League it's canon with, so it just contradicts both of them. Bruce, this is huge. I can go back in time and save my parents, fix my shitty life. I could even save your parents. Yeah, I don't know if that's such a good idea, Barry. Good and bad, the past defines who we are. But I'll tell you this, don't let your past define you. What? Look, I'm almost out of these damn movies. I'm not questioning the script. Laters. Congratulations on air. Mad props for getting your life back on track post-Batman. Barry returns home where Iris is waiting for him for some reason. After some more stilted and awkward dialogue with no chemistry whatsoever, Barry realizes that if he goes back in time and puts extra tomatoes in his mom's shopping cart, his dad won't have to leave for the store and his mom won't get killed. This cannot wait for 5 seconds, so Barry bails on Iris, leaving her rejected and alone in his apartment. Wow, what a douche! Iris is not seen again until the absolute end of the movie. She's supposed to be the single most important person in Barry's life, the lightning rod that brings him back no matter how lost he gets. And she's barely in the movie. Kiersey Clemons does a fine job, but Miller actively seems to hate sharing any scenes with her. Say what you will about the CW show, but Grant Gustin and Candice Patton could stand being in the same room. And so, Barry travels back to the past to put the tomatoes into his mother's shopping basket and save her life. But as he's running back to the present, a mysterious evil speedster covered in black armor knocks Barry out into 2013 instead of the present. Well, gee, the Dark Flash looks like you smeared diarrhea all over Savitar, who in the CW show is a time remnant of Barry who tried to demolish time to fix his life. I wonder who the Dark Flash could possibly be! But Barry goes back to his childhood home and finds that indeed his mom is alive and his dad is not in prison, and they have a very heartwarming reunion together as they sit down to a family lunch. Trouble is, this is one of only 2 scenes that Barry has with his parents. Neither shows up again until the very end, so Barry's motivation is kinda neutered. They had the chance to fix Flashpoint's biggest problem, and they passed on it for shtick. You see, the lunch is cut short when Barry realizes that there's already a Barry Allen living in the alternate timeline, so Barry dashes outside to meet himself. Barry 2, an alternate timeline version of himself that's about 10 years younger. Okay, I have to figure out how to get out of this situation with the space-time continuum intact. Do the thing again. What? No, I'm having a crisis here. Do the thing again. Don't you get it? This could be a time paradox that ends all of existence. Dance for me, monkey! Mom! There! Christ! A large chunk of the film is taken up by buddy comedy bits of Ezra Miller playing off of Ezra Miller. And to be fair, they have a lot of funny bits and some great physical comedy messing around with the Flash's powers, and I admit this is an issue that might just bother me personally, but Barry 2 annoyed the living piss out of me. Imagine if Fox News wrote a straw man of what they think of millennials, and you'll begin to understand how frustrating Barry 2 is. He's an entitled idiot who doesn't know how to do anything for himself, doesn't take anything seriously despite how many times Barry 1 stresses that the fate of the world could be at stake, is constantly screwing around when Barry 1 is trying to do something important, and is kind of implied to be coasting through life because his parents do so much for him. And I know that annoying characters can be used for effective comedy, but Barry 2's annoyance comes from being a useless moron who's a hindrance to all the other characters at all times. Wait a minute. This is the exact day that I got my powers! We have to go to the police lab right now, or you won't get powers, and I won't exist, and the future will be jeopardized! I don't know. I've got a date with Iris West tonight. Let's go to the lab faster! Wait, why are you here when you got powers? I thought you didn't get a job here until Justice League. Alright, now you just sit in this chair, you'll get struck by lightning, and you'll get superpowers. Wait, I'll get struck by lightning? Dude, it won't kill you, and you'll get superpowers and keep time from imploding. But I don't want to get struck by lightning. You have to for the world not to blow up, you stupid fuck! And lightning strikes them both so that Barry 1 loses his powers and Barry 2 gains them. Okay, so good news. You can vibrate your molecules to phase through walls. Sweet. Bad news, you have to eat non-stop. You can't touch anybody at high speed or they'll explode. You'll fall through the floor while phasing. You can't run outside your suit or all your clothes will burn off. And you constantly generate lightning that blows up everything around you so you can't run anywhere that's populated. Our powers blow ass, don't they? Yeah, in case you know nothing about the Flash comics, Barry's powers come from the Speed Force, a natural energy field that binds reality together. And part of how the Speed Force works is that it generates a natural barrier that protects its users and anything in their immediate vicinity from being harmed by the super speed powers. So yes, speedsters can run in any clothes they please, yes, the Flash can touch and move people without them exploding, and no, the lightning that the Flash generates doesn't constantly detonate everything in his vicinity wherever he runs. And before you argue that they changed all that for the sake of realism in this movie about a guy who runs so fast that he time travels, realism doesn't stop them from giving Barry a high-tech suit that collapses into a ring and expands to fit a full-sized person just through exposure to the air, in a universe where shrinking tech has not been established. You want to know why the Flash's powers suck? Because Zack Snyder nerfed the piss out of the Flash in his cut of Justice League, and they wanted to try and keep continuity. Zack Snyder had no idea how the Flash's powers work. Only included him in Justice League to use as a time travel MacGuffin for his stupid-ass apocalyptic future plans, and he was so desperate to come up with something for his Flash to do that he just kept using him as a battery for Cyborg because he couldn't figure out any other way to use a guy who runs fast. And now the Flash's own movie will keep making him cartoonishly useless in the name of keeping in canon with the crappy movie that isn't even canon. Years after leaving the DCEU, Snyder's footprint is still hampering these movies. Anyway, during Barry 2's training, they see General Zod's announcement from Man of Steel that they've arrived on Earth and they're looking for Superman. Yeah, the Flash just happens to have gotten his powers one day before Man of Steel happened. The Sid is tight on my dick. Aw man, this is bad. I was in Metropolis during the invasion. I was so useless that I saved one kid and that was it. That's oddly specific. Is that kid important? No! Now focus! If we assemble the Justice League, we can stop Zod before he causes all the collateral damage from Man of Steel that put this franchise in a hole before it even started! Come on! Crap on toast, I can't find Superman, none of the other League members exist, and it's not clear if anybody knows about the Justice Society! My time traveling wiped out the world's superheroes! Who are these people? Oh, these are my 2 or 3 roommates who are all stoned and or drunk and I don't think have jobs. This totally isn't another mean-spirited jab at millennials. However, the Barrys eventually figure out that Batman does indeed still exist in this timeline, so they go to Wayne Manor and fight a stuntman with a mop covering his face so we can't tell that it's not Michael Keaton. By the way, Batman is now Michael Keaton from the 1989 Tim Burton films, because Spider-Man No Way Home did buku box office numbers. It amuses me that Roger Moore's final James Bond films were slammed for him being too old at 57. But 67-year-old Michael Keaton was begged to return as Batman to thunderous applause. Probably because the Batsuit makes it easier to hide stunt doubles. I've been retired for years, kid. I made Gotham one of the safest cities in the world and nobody needed me anymore. Damn, my Bruce went to war with Superman because he fought crime for 20 years and hadn't done shit. Your Batman sucks, dude. Okay, elephant in the room, why are you so much older here? You think of time travel as a straight line, like this piece of spaghetti. You think if you go back and change something, it just splinters off into a new piece of spaghetti. But it actually gets you onto an entirely new piece of spaghetti that just happens to cross at a single exact point. So time travel sends you to a completely different timeline at pure random? That makes no sense! Well, that's because you'd have to be a complete moron to even think about time travel. How do you know everything about how time travel works anyway? Well, that's simple. I'm Batman. Wait, you're Batman? Are you shitting me right now? Anyway, Batman, will you help us? Bass, but the entire world is at stake. Did I stutter? What if I told you that dead parents are involved? Damn you, my Achilles heel! Actually, before Keaton agrees to help, the Barrys sneak into the Batcave. Barry 1 starts looking for Superman. Barry 2 dicks around with Batman stuff and naps in the Batmobile. Barry 1 calls 2 out for being a dipstick that takes everything for granted. Barry 2 calls 1 a hard-ass with the social skills of a crocodile, and you're both right. Neither of you are likable! Batman hacks the most secret of government and corporate secrets and figures out that Superman did come to Earth, but instead of landing at the Kent farm, the pod was picked up by Russian mercenaries. So they ride in the Batplane to Russia, and getting into the base, we see Keaton's Batman has a grapnel and grip strength to lift a full-grown man just fine. Affleck's left the movie, and they're still dunking on him. This scene belongs to Michael Keaton as we see his Batman glide all over the place, beat the crap out of tons of goons, loads of visual flair and fun fight choreography emulating the Burton films, an epic rendition of Danny Elfman's iconic Batman theme blares. It's a great set piece. It's easily a major highlight of the movie, except this action sequence is about all that Keaton does. Stupid people like to claim that No Way Home was just nostalgia pandering, but almost all the legacy characters had arcs advancing their original stories and all actively contributed to the lead's development. Keaton is really only here for this one fight scene featuring a guy that you recognize from your childhood, and the rest of the movie he's just kind of there. I don't even think he has an arc. Bruce being a recluse when Batman isn't needed is exactly how Batman Returns started. His character hasn't budged in 20 years. That said, it is nice to finally have a better actor than Ezra Miller carrying the movie. Ah, I got shot! You didn't tell me I could get shot! What part of our powers made you think you can't get shot? So now I'm carrying 2 people's worth of dead weight all by myself. What do the kids call that? Meta? They realize that Superman isn't actually in the facility, some random girl is, and as they try to make their escape and get surrounded, it turns out they just rescued Supergirl, who beats the shit out of all the guards and then conveniently passes out so they can grab her and escape. Sasha Calle as Supergirl is another of the film's definite highlights. Not only does she just look gorgeous in the costume, but she gives a great performance and commands the screen whenever she's around. Problem is, she's not around much. Humans kept me prisoner for 30 years. I won't fight with you. Mankind sucks, and you don't deserve my help. Whoosh. Whoosh. I will fight with you. Zod sucks, and you deserve my help. You were only gone for like 3 minutes! I saw Zod kill a few soldiers, and now I like people. Cool. Listen, if I stop acting like a tool, can I plow you? What? To be fair, around this same time, Barry 2 overhears that this time travel mission was to save his parents, so that could be the reason he stops acting like such a moron. But the fact that I can't pinpoint his motivation is a mark of how badly written this movie is. Batman sets up a big machine to get Barry 1 struck by lightning and get his powers back, and this part is so silly that I cannot believe it made the final cut. Batman has a bat kite. They go full Benjamin Franklin and have lightning strike a bat kite. So Barry 1 gets his powers back, and the heroes unite to battle Zod for the fate of the Earth, with Barry 2 painting over one of Batman's old costumes to make their own superhero suit. Good luck with that. Keaton's batsuits are notoriously impossible to move inside. Our heroes head off to the big CG climactic battle in the desert. But first, oh, and by the way, if you use your powers, you'll die. Wait, what? Yeah, I'm not making that up. Barry 1 explains that because Barry 2 isn't wearing the right costume, if he actually uses his super speed powers, he'll build up too much charge and blow up. The Flash will die if he uses the Flash's powers in a movie called The Flash. That's like saying that Superman can't fly because his cape is the wrong color. This shit's gone beyond parody at this point. So after something like an hour and a half of the characters dicking around aimlessly, we finally have an actual villain for the last 20 minutes or so of this superhero movie. General Zod, played by a Michael Shannon that looks bored off his ass the entire time he's on screen. Before the film released, Shannon did well-publicized interviews that he hated his role in this movie, that he was wasted on a glorified cameo with no depth or meaning. Tell us how you really feel, dude. Lord knows the movie was overburdened with positive buzz. Anyway, big fight scene. Supergirl fights one-on-one with Zod, the Flashes help the military fight the other Kryptonian soldiers, and Batman flies around trying to take out the Kryptonian ships. Let me rephrase that if you don't see the problem here. Supergirl fights the main threat solo, and all the other major heroes piss around with red shirts doing nothing of significance. The Flash is barely relevant to the climax of his own movie. A huge chunk of this scene is still Barry 1 just explaining his powers to Barry 2, who runs around using that charge he builds up to throw lightning at the Kryptonians. And I know that this is a clipless review, but I must immortalize one of the worst line deliveries of all time. I'm just saying, baby in a microwave is good, but Crush Nard's Let's Go also has meme potential. The climax is just so meh. The action is fine enough, but they've done such an abysmal job setting up the villains or building any kind of drama or suspense. It's like, I know that the fate of the world rests on this fight, but it doesn't feel like it, especially when our lead heroes have zero connection to the villain. After a while, things go to hell. Batman tries to blow up a Kryptonian ship, but he gets shot down and he dies. Did Barry just forget to tell Batman that Kryptonian shit is invulnerable to everything? And Supergirl thrashes Zod pretty good, but she dies to a hidden blade in Zod's armor, with Zod's forces taking a blood sample from her that contains the genetic codex that will rebuild their species. The Flashes realize they've lost and that Earth is doomed, which, I don't know. The bad guys walking away with a blood sample feels like a weak sauce bad ending next to the planet exploding to punctuate how hosed the Flash is. But the Flashes realize that they can time travel back a few minutes and fix things. Batman, don't attack that ship, it's shielded! Gotcha, I won't attack that ship, that can't be destroyed. Phew, solved that. Instead I'll fight a Kryptonian giant that can't be destroyed. Wait, what? Oh god, I'm bad at this! Batman, don't worry, I can bring you back! You already did. So yeah, the time travel doesn't matter. Even with backup, Zod kills Supergirl again, and no matter how many times Barry 2 tries, she keeps getting killed. Given the Flash's powers and the fact Barry 2 gets a sword that kills Kryptonians impaled through his arm to use, this feels less like impossible odds and more like our lead heroes are too incompetent to accomplish a simple task. Don't worry, if we just keep time traveling, we can fix this. Dude, there's debris sticking out of you. How are you still able to run and fight? I don't know, just got to try again. Shit, again. Shit, again. It's no use. Again. Losing this battle is a fixed point in history. Nothing can stop it. This is destiny, and you can't fight destiny or else you'll destroy everything. Our only option is to accept fate and let our mom die the way history always intended. Oh, hey, Spider-Man 2099, when did you get here? And here's where I potentially talk out of my ass for a while about the movie's themes and meanings. I admit that I am not a literary major or anything like that. This is just how I interpreted the movie. A lot of people were drawing unfavorable contrast between The Flash and another 2023 superhero blockbuster, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. The main conflict in Across the Spider-Verse is that Miles Morales has to let an unspeakable tragedy befall his family because that's just how Spider-Man works, that every Spider-Man is a slave to canon events that ruin their lives, and they have to sit and take it because it's safe. If you mess with the old ways, there's no telling what damage could be done. And Miles rejects that thinking. Who are you to dictate how someone else's life is supposed to go based on abstract concepts of tradition and destiny? We forge our own futures, and you can build something better than the status quo. The Flash seems to take the opposite view. Barry's life being miserable has to happen, or else the world explodes. There's nothing you can do to change things, and as Keaton's Batman spells out, you're an idiot to even try. Spider-Verse says screw destiny, while The Flash says destiny will make you its bitch and you'll like it. One's message is to fight the status quo because the new can be glorious, the other's is to knuckle under the status quo because the new is too dangerous. And you might say that the moral of The Flash is just a simple you can't change the past. One movie's about time travel and the other isn't. Except that doesn't explain what they do with Barry 2. They introduce a second Barry whose life was better than the status quo allowed, and he's a completely worthless moron who's a perpetual drag on all the actual useful characters. And here in the climax, as Barry 2 starts demolishing the space-time continuum out of naivete and selfishness, he can't be trusted with power in the first place. So the moral is that if your life is miserable, good! Stay oppressed by the status quo, because the alternative is to be a spineless ninny who doesn't have the character to amount to anything, and trying to improve your lot in life will just ruin everything for everyone. I've seen people try to lay the blame for the whole you can't change destiny theme at the feet of the source material, but I don't think that's accurate. Most depictions of the Flash show time travel as an extremely difficult and violently unstable process that you should never do. That way the Flash can't just retcon any story that goes wrong. Zach! And most versions of Flashpoint show Barry has a great life before the story. Successful job, loving wife, and great circle of friends. He just still hadn't gotten over this one death from decades ago. The impetus of Flashpoint is a small, petty act from a guy who can't let go of the past. So the moral of Flashpoint is the importance of moving on from tragedy because it's the only healthy option. Flashpoint isn't a story about the futility of fighting destiny. It's the story of a guy who risks blowing up the universe rather than go to therapy.
You didn't stop JFK from getting assassinated, or make sure Hitler stayed in art school. You saved your mommy. And in a supreme act of selfishness, shattered history like a rank amateur.
This movie just feels like it botches that theme from every angle. By muting the severity of the alternate timeline, altering Barry's motivation into trying to fix his whole life, having a second Barry who sucks, and having time travel be so easily accessible that Barry can try hundreds of times with no consequences, but still inevitably fail. But then again, they took a tension-fueled apocalyptic drama and turned it into a buddy comedy. Saying they didn't get Flashpoint is kinda redundant. So yeah, to nobody's surprise, it turns out that the Dark Flash, yeah, remember him, is Barry too, having presumably spent decades trying to fix this battle, and now destroying the multiverse with his time meddling. Because of course, the millennial trying to improve the status quo is the villain. Of course he is. Dark Flash forced Barry 1 to stop in 2013 because he realized that without Barry 1, he never gets his powers. And I just realized that there was literally nothing stopping Barry 1 from just going back to 2023 any time before he lost his powers. The only explanation why he didn't is that our brave hero was just too chicken to risk running into our villain. Nice. And as time begins to collapse, we get one of the most hyped moments of the movie, views into other DC universes with cameos from other DC actors. And what stars did they get? CG recreations of George Reeves as Superman, Christopher Reeves and Helen Slater as Superman and Supergirl, Adam West's Batman, barely, he's shoved off to the side, and the big one is Nicolas Cage as Superman, which is an inside joke for online super nerds. Honestly, I had a whole rant prepared about all the DC actors that are still among the living that were passed up on, but I can't speak to what happens behind the scenes. Linda Carter supposedly did film a cameo that was cut for unknown reasons, and Kevin Smith claims that Christian Bale was offered a cameo and he turned it down. It is entirely plausible that other cameos were offered and the actors just refused to support an Ezra Miller project. If it comes out that no, they didn't even offer cameos to the likes of Grant Gustin, John Wesley Shipp, Robert Pattinson, or whoever, then fuck you, Andy Muschietti, for just jerking off your own personal nostalgia. I also question the choice of digitally necromancing George Reeves to appear as the role that drove him to suicide, and he's not the only questionable cameo. Right next to George Reeves is a guy representing Jay Garrick, the original Golden Age Flash, and he appears to be played by Teddy Sears, reprising his role from Season 2 of the CW Flash show. Well, awesome! We finally got our Arrowverse representation, right? Well, no. Teddy Sears never played Jay Garrick. He played the villain Zoom, who pretended to be Jay Garrick to get close to Barry and his teammates. They didn't take 2 seconds to check whether their one Arrowverse shoutout was even accurate. Teddy Sears swears that he did not film anything for this movie. Supposedly this is just some random uncredited actor, but it looks friggin' exactly like Teddy Sears. Either it's a massive coincidence or they deep-faked a living actor without his knowledge. Anyway, back to the actual movie. There is no final confrontation with the villain. Dark Flash just kind of monologues for a bit, and then when he tries to stab Barry 1, Barry 2 takes the blade, and it wipes Dark Flash from existence with a time paradox. So, the millennial caricature does exactly one thing right the entire movie, by dying to restore the natural order. I wrote that line as a facetious joke, but the more I dwell on it, it feels accurate to the movie's themes and politics. Flash goes back in time, and we get what is pretty rightfully held up as the best scene of the movie. Barry goes back to that grocery store with his mom, knowing that he has to take the can of tomatoes back out and effectively kill her. But before he does, he says goodbye to his mom, not revealing who he is, and nearly breaks down during and after. It's the one dramatic beat that Miller really does nail, in my opinion. And so Barry returns to the present, and everything's gone back to normal. His mom is still dead, and the Justice League is a thing again. But then it reveals that before he returned to the present, Barry put all the tomato cans on a higher shelf so that his dad looks up at the camera, so he wins his appeal and gets out of jail. So the entire movie's moral of how you can't change the past just got shot in the face. Barry and his dad don't have a single scene together, probably because this ending was rewritten and reshot about a dozen times. Iris catches up with Barry and tells him to ask her out. Why? The dude has been nothing but standoffish, awkward, pissed off, and creepy with you. And so our movie ends with one more cameo for the road. Bruce Wayne comes out to congratulate Barry on his dad's appeal, but it's not Ben Affleck. Batman is now George Clooney from the infamous Batman and Robin. Okay, I'll admit it, that one got me. Even spoiled ahead of time on his appearance. That was funny. Before they deep-sixed the DCEU, this scene was supposed to have Keaton's Batman and Kale's Supergirl migrated to the mainline movies, With that original ending gone and this movie's rules on how time travel works, that means the world of Batman 89 got blown up by Zod 20 years later, and nobody could stop it because Destiny's status quo is too important. Yay for bringing Keaton back only to detonate his entire universe, you nihilistic sack of shit! And then Flash has a credit scene of pulling a blackout drunk Aquaman out of a bar. It's a funny moment, but it leaves me with some questions. I thought the entire reason this movie was made was to establish the end of the DC Extended Universe. This ending implies that the DCEU is still going strong. All we did was swap out Ben Affleck. Nothing about this movie feels like an ending or implies that a new universe is coming. The one reason for this film's existence doesn't even happen. Then again, this movie did go into production as just another DC film and was only declared the series' grand finale less than a year before release. Of course this doesn't feel like an ending. Nobody was told that it's the ending until the damn thing was already finished. The DCEU ends by stumbling drunkenly into a blackout. Pretty fitting, all things considered. The Flash is a painfully mediocre movie. It is not unwatchable, but for a movie with so much hype and importance placed upon it, the movie just feels like a wet fart, you know? It has its highlights in some well-delivered comedy bits, Keaton's Batman and Sasha Calle as Supergirl, but a lot of the middle feels like aimless meandering in a story that doesn't mean anything until the third act. My friend Miles asked what I thought the biggest problem with the movie was, and my answer is, it's just unfocused and confused. It's a superhero movie that barely has a villain, no final showdown, and where the hero spends most of the movie depowered, doing nothing but dump exposition. It's an action flick with all of 3 action scenes. One's played for laughs, one barely involves the lead hero, and one is mostly talking. It's a comedy that's a full hour longer than most comedies run, and changes genres to drama that doesn't land because way too much time was spent on slapstick hijinks. Multiple major characters just vanished out of the movie, a big deal is made out of plot points that are never mentioned again. The movie is so confused that I can't even pick which cut of Justice League is canon! I keep going back to that final speech that Ben Affleck gives before getting the hell out of the DCEU about how Barry's tragedy and trauma are super important because they define who he is, but also that Barry shouldn't let tragedy and trauma define who he is. That keeps sticking out to me like a sore thumb of how this movie was either rewritten to death or just never figured out what it was trying to do in the first place. It's hard to tell exactly why The Flash crashed and burned at the box office, whether it was Ezra Miller's public meltdown, general dislike of the DCEU, the film launching into a massively overcrowded month, or all of the above. But now that we know the movie's a mediocre pile of crap, at least we don't feel bad about it bombing.